It looks like we may only have Mr. Rick Donahoe here for this portion. We can't seem to find Matthew Bishop. That means Mr. Donahoe gets an extended time for his opening statement / closing statement. All right, let's begin.
Hi, I'd like to thank the League for sponsoring the event tonight and helping to educate the voters in our community. Again, I'm Rick Donahoe, running for position 3 on the Richland School Board. I'm running because I'm passionate about public education, and I think I have the experience and skills that will benefit our entire school community. I was a teacher in middle school in Virginia a long time ago. It did not go well. So I went back to school, became a chemical engineer, and worked as an engineer and project manager for 33 years for Bechtel. I retired. I failed at retirement. I went back to work at a nonprofit, discovered the whole nonprofit community, was a CEO for the Children's Reading Foundation. I've led large teams across the world doing challenging work, serving 13,000 students in our district of 18 schools with 700 teachers, 600 support staff is challenging work. That work needs to be a collaborative effort of the students, parents and family, teachers and school staff, and the larger community. The school board is just one piece of that collaborative effort. I got my first degree in education, and after graduating, became an English language arts teacher. I went back to school after that to become a chemical engineer. I got an MBA degree and managed oil and gas projects and nuclear projects around the world. When I was the CEO of the Children's Reading Foundation, I directed a team there doing large literacy grants in 60 different school districts in 26 states, very, very high poverty communities. I've been on the board for the last 10 years. When I first joined the board, I became interested in special education. So I went back to school again and got a degree in special education, got my administrative credential, which allows me to be an administrator or principal, and I've been doing that, that work on the school board for 10 years. In addition to being on the school board, I'm currently the treasurer for a nonprofit organization, and I serve on 2 financial commissions. I volunteered in the Richland schools for each of the last 25 years as a tutor, a guest teacher, and a technical theater specialist, helping out at Hanford High School and the other middle schools. I love working with kids and watching them grow in both their skills and their confidence. I hope you can see my passion for public education. I'd like to continue to serve the kids in our community. Thank you.
All right. Jay Clough and Carrie Williams are running for Richland School Board Director 4. Mr. Clough, you filed first. Could you please 2-minute opening statement?
Thank you. My name is Jay Clough, and I'm running for Richland School Board Director position 4 because I have 2 young children in the Richland School District, and I want them to have the education that the Richland School District has been famous for since I was a kid growing up in this community. This is my 4th year volunteering in my children's school. I've seen firsthand the challenges that our district faces and began attending school board meetings at the beginning of last school year, long before I ever thought of running for school board, because I wanted to be an informed parent, and what I learned by attending is why I ran. I graduated locally and earned 2 bachelor's degrees from Central Washington University, served in the United States Marine Corps, and work at the Hanford site. I have served on multiple boards in our community, and I've also spent multiple years teaching programs such as junior achievement in our community. When elected, I'll be a member of a 5-member board, and from my experience with boards, they require specific skill sets. Some of these same skill sets that will be desperately needed to heal our district. A successful board member needs to reach out to those for whom they will advocate and to listen to their concerns and their ideas for solving their unique challenges. As soon as I decided to run, I reached out to students and their families, teachers, paraeducators, SPED families, and school board members themselves, not to ask for anything in particular other than their experiences, their observations, and their solutions. My steering committee is comprised of these same groups. This is what would be necessary for us to heal and to move forward. A member of the board needs to be able to build healthy relationships with their peers. They need to understand relationship dynamics and how to be a team player. Building consensus and solving challenges isn't about being a subject matter expert. It's about listening to the people most affected, building bridges between stakeholders who may see things differently, speaking to subject matter experts, and working to build solutions as a team. I've not sought nor accepted endorsements from partisan organizations. I've actively reached out to elected officials from both major parties to build a consensus of support for my campaign. My list of endorsements include the former chair of the local Republican Party, our current county commissioner, Sean Small, our current prosecutor, Andy Miller, our current county assessor, Bill Spencer, our local teachers union, the state teachers union, the pipe fitters, and the laborers union. I spent years building relationships, giving back to my community, reaching across the aisle to build bridges, and I believe that my endorsements are a testament to that. I appreciate your consideration and hope to earn your support.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us. My name is Carrie Williams, and I'm running for Richland School Board Director number 4. I'm running for this position because I believe that every school district should have a teacher with a degree in education serving on their school board. I am a former elementary school teacher with a master's degree in education with an emphasis in teaching and learning. I've been working and volunteering in this field that I love for nearly 20 years. My experience as a teacher will help me to see solutions to problems that others who have never had their own classroom would simply miss. Although I have left my classroom for a season in order to be a stay-at-home mom to our 5 beautiful children, I have still been actively involved within our district. I not only volunteer regularly in my children's classrooms, I also have served at the district level in multiple capacities. I've served as the co-chair of Richland Citizens for Good Schools during a recent school bond issue campaign where I served as a liaison between our school board and our building administrators and PTOs in order to better inform the community of our building needs within the district. I've also served on the Richland School District's Instructional Materials Committee, or the IMC, helping make curriculum decisions within our district. My top priorities as a school board director would be, 1, mend the current disconnect that we have between our district administrators and our classroom teachers. 2, hire an incredible superintendent that will continue to take our district to new heights and start to rebuild the trust between the school board and the community. 3, close the achievement gap by not only raising the bar for students who have academically struggled, but also for those students who academically excel and every student in between. It is time that we have at least one Richland School Board member with an in-depth knowledge and understanding of best teaching practices and how students actually learn in our classes. I am uniquely qualified for this position, and I'm committed to use my education and experience to improve the quality of education for every child in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Clough, because you filed first, you get to answer the first audience question. And we got many concerning the same topic, so we'll jump right in. With the search for a new superintendent, how will you proceed so as not to waste valuable budget dollars on the wrong person for a second time?
That's a loaded question. Now, let me see. Well, I think it's important that we have a large field of applicants to begin with. I think it's important that the process not get very far before the new board is seated. I think we need to have new eyes on this process. Nothing against the former board members. I think they did the best with the skills that were available to them. And I think that we need to do a better job of reaching out and not just allowing stakeholders to be in the meetings, but actually have a say in the meetings about who we choose. I think the school board allowed, for example, the teachers and the paraeducators to be in the meetings, but when it came time to actually take in their feedback, I'm not sure that those organizations felt they were really listened to. And so a lot of those red flags were brought up in the process, and we proceeded and got what we got. So I think that's how we save the taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Mr. Clough. Ms. Williams.
Well, this time around, we'll also be hiring to not hire a deputy superintendent for a couple of years, which was originally the plan. And so I believe because of that, we'll be hiring somebody that will be going right into the superintendent position. That will bring us a bigger and broader spectrum of people coming in. And I also think that we need to be including all the stakeholders. And as I mentioned at our last school board meeting, I would love to involve our students in this search process as well. This is something that's done all over the country and something that many of them will have to be doing as adults as well. And hearing what they have to say. This is their district, and we need to be doing what they want us to be doing as well. So involving all stakeholders, including our students, and then making sure that we have multiple opportunities to hear from the community and for the community to meet all of the candidates. I think that in combination of all of those, I think we're definitely out for success.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, you're up first this time. Delta High School is a good example of the 3 largest local school districts working together to make a STEM high school available in the Tri-Cities. How familiar are you with Delta High, and are there practices used at Delta that you think would be put to good use in other high schools in Richland?
You know, I'm pretty familiar with Delta High School, been there a few times. I think it's amazing to see this collaborative effort between our 3 cities in order to create a place for students to thrive. I am a huge proponent of making sure that there's options for our kids. And if our kids are really into the arts, I would love to have more schools that are into the arts. If we have, or even we mentioned this last time, having students having specialized training or having classes in a second or dual language immersion school, any kind of options like that to enrich the educational opportunities for our students, I'm absolutely for.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Clough.
This is an awesome question. This excites me. All over the world, they have school districts that allow students to learn the way that they learn. And what Mrs. Williams has talked about is schools that focus on the arts, or schools that focus on language, or schools that focus on engineering. Those are all incredibly important ways of learning, and not every kid learns the same way. I have volunteered at Delta before in their end-of-year presentations as a judge, and we do have something really special there. And I think that we need to support and expand that. And I agree with Mrs. Williams. And there's other ways that we can expand that would be very beneficial to our kids.
Thank you, Mr. Clough, and you will go first again. Should school districts be in the habit of banning books, teaching creationalism in science classrooms, or eliminating age-appropriate sex education?
Okay, so let me, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so banning books, no. I do think that parents should have the ability to withdraw their kids from a program of a book they don't agree with, but I don't think that you should have an entire class's curriculum decided by one parent that is upset about a book. As far as, what was the second one? Creationism and sex education. So creationism, I'm Catholic, and so as a Catholic, I believe in the creation theory, but I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of my faith being pushed onto students that maybe come from atheist families, or Buddhist families, or Muslim families, or any other group of people that don't believe the same way that I do. So I think that science should be taught in science classrooms, and that creation should be taught in church and in seminary, things like that. And the last one was sex education. Age-appropriate sex education. There seems to be this theory that within certain circles in our community that we're all of a sudden going to be teaching intercourse sex to kindergartners, and that's just not, I don't know how people think that, but it's good touch, bad touch. It's who to trust. It's how to talk to an adult about what's happening to you, and these are all things that are very important to our children, making sure that they know who to trust. And I think that we eliminate sex education in our classrooms at our own peril. We have one of the highest STT rates per capita in the United States in this community. We need to do a better job of informing our kids about the dangers of well, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Clough. Ms. Williams.
So, okay, First, censoring books. As far as I know, my experience that I've been on the IMC, the Instructional Materials Committee, which is the committee that's just underneath the school board as far as adapting and adopting new curriculum, including novels. We are not in the business of censoring books. It's more or less making sure that our students and our families have options, and so that as teachers, we do not want to make families feel uncomfortable or a child feel uncomfortable because they're required to read a book in our class. And so we need to make sure as a school board, when we're adopting books, that if there is something controversial, whether it's adult theme, and we're adults, we can figure out what that is, we need to make sure that alongside of that book, that there is another alternative option for that class, for that meeting that same exact standard. And I see nothing wrong with that. That's making sure that our families have options and our students have options. And our teachers have the resources as well. Next one. That was the school one. What's the next? Creationism. I agree. I think that the belief system shouldn't be taught in the schools. I think that yeah, they shouldn't be taught in the schools. And I only have a few seconds left. And the last question is sex education. Sex education. So healthy relationships is something that is taught that's already approved, and that's what our good touch, bad touch, our inappropriate touch, and appropriate touch. That is what we call as teachers teaching healthy relationships. That's already taught. Sex ed in young grades, early primary grades, absolutely not. Starting in 5th grade on up, and I have no more time. Sorry. That
Thank
was
you,
a loaded
Carrie.
question. Thank you.
Yes, it was. Good job, you guys. Next question. As Richland is looking for another superintendent, what are the top 3 qualities you think that superintendent should have? Ms. Williams, you're first.
So I've been thinking about this. Here's my book that I carry with me everywhere as I'm talking to people, and if they have great ideas, I always jot them down. And so as I've been thinking about a superintendent, I served, when I was in my undergrad, I served at the University of Utah. We were seeking out a new president of the university. And so I was chosen to be the student representative on that search committee for the president of the university. And so I've seen what an awesome search party looks like, and I've been a huge part of it. I was the only student representative on that board. And so thinking back to that time and also thinking about the needs that we have here in Richland, there's one question that there's 2 questions that I want to make sure that I want to ask, and I'm looking for a certain answer with our superintendent candidates, and I'll share that with you. One is, what does being an instructional leader look like to you? I just want to know what an instructional, because that is what our superintendent does. He or she is the instructional leader for our district. And what does that look like for you? And then another question is, how do you enact change without it seeming burdensome to classroom teachers? And I think and I have about 6 others that are written down here that are important to me. Because I'm an educator myself, I know how influential this superintendent can be. And I want to make sure we do it excellently this time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Clough.
I think that the best way moving forward is to learn from the past. Our current superintendent, in my opinion, is a good superintendent. I would, in the next superintendent, I would want to see the ability to display empathy for the students in our district, but also the staff in our district, and how their decisions affect not just the families that go to our schools, but the families that work in our schools. I would want to see, obviously, a resume full of building relationships and organizations and instilling I'm losing the word, but a feeling in the district of teamwork and working together towards a goal that doesn't exclude members of our community, doesn't exclude the staff, doesn't exclude the students, and is focused on more of a delegation kind of leadership. And I'm still losing that word, so I'm just going to let it go at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clough. Jay Clough, Carrie Williams, both vying for a spot on Richland School Board, Director 4. All right, thank you, everyone. Now, last but certainly not least, our two candidates running for Richland School Board Director 5, Jill Oldson and Rama Devagupta. I got the thumbs up on that one. Ms. Oldson, you filed first. 2-minute opening statement, please, whenever you are ready.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight and educating yourselves on the issues that are facing our district. As I sat here and listened to everyone that was talking and the questions and such that were answered, it kind of changed my whole speech. I had everything all prepared and ready to go, and I was going to tell you about all the great things that I've done and what I want to do and all these. But that's not what this is about. This is not about going through and continuing to do things the way we've always done them. It's about listening to what our community wants and listening to what our students want and listening to how that plays into every decision that we make. A lot of people ask me, you've been on the board for a year, what did you learn? And probably the biggest thing that I learned during that year is that people make mistakes and people need to learn from those mistakes. And I will tell you, I've spent this past year doing everything that I can to learn all the things that I can in putting those things behind us and looking at the things that we can do differently. And I think most importantly, in traveling and doing different things across the state, because one of the first things I did was try to figure out how I could educate myself more effectively, and I joined Washington School Directors Association, and I work with a cohort of school directors across the state. And what we really need to do is we need to listen to our students, and we need to listen to their parents. We need to let these kids understand that they have the desire and the will and the capacity to do whatever they want to do, regardless of what their situation is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oldson. Ms. Devagupta.
Good evening. I am Rama Devagupta. I'm running for Richland School Board 2. 1. Oversee the district budget so taxpayer dollars are spent with the singular focus on student growth and development, and to ensure that we have proper policies, procedures, and systems in place to make the vision and mission of our district a reality. I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to serve on our school board and provide inspirational leadership. I have a PhD in chemistry from Texas A&M University. I'm a national board certified teacher. I'm a teacher at Kennewick School District and an adjunct at CBC. I'm also a proud parent of 2 RSD graduates who were born right here at Cadillac and who are now productive members of society. When my children were young, I volunteered extensively. I served on numerous school district committees. Please visit my website, ramaforschoolboard.com, to learn more about my volunteer work, my professional experiences, and my family. My greatest desire is to ensure that all students have the opportunity to excel and fulfill their dreams. As an experienced educator, I understand how the education system works. I have been directly involved in the education of special education students, English language learners, students who have participated in the honors and AP programs, and unfortunately, students who are slipping through the cracks. Every day, I get to experience the concerns, joys, and struggles of our schools, our parents, our students, our teachers, and I know firsthand what it takes for our schools and our children to succeed and shine. I'm also a scientist, freelance writer, and an artist. I am a professional who works tirelessly, who seeks excellence, and yet I'm also someone who strives to balance the head and the heart. Creating the right circumstances and making the right decisions on a school board is very important. If I have the privilege of your vote and honor of serving on the school board, I will work diligently. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oldson, you filed first. You will answer first. What will you do as a school board member to assure that the fiasco created by the previous superintendent candidate does not happen in the future?
Wow. What do I like personally do? The one thing I want to reiterate, and again, I came in after a lot of this happened. I've sat on the board for a year, and so I've kind of tried to evaluate and look and see how things have changed and what we could have done different. I think the thing each one of us have to remember, people make the best decisions based on the information that they have at the time they're making a decision. So with that, there was community input, there were things that were taken into place, and those were all considered. And you never know what you don't know until someone shows it to you. I just believe that during this next process, we need to listen to the community, we need to listen to our students, we need to listen to the teachers, and we really need to go through a thought process of what exactly does our district need. We have a good district. The community support that we have in this community is outstanding. They should be writing articles about us. They should be saying, and Richland School District has done this to excel. We've kind of stayed level. We need to see and look and see what it takes to take us to the next level. This was in the past. We can't change it. We can't fix it. But what we can do is learn from those mistakes and go forward in helping the next one be as successful as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Oldson. Ms. David Gupta.
Can you please repeat the question for me?
Yes, of course, once I find it.
You want me to repeat it? I'm ingrained in that question.
So it was basically asking, as a school board member, how will you stop the fiasco, quote unquote, of what happened with the last superintendent candidate from happening again? Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we have to remember is one school board member cannot do anything. We have 5 school board members. All 5 of us have to work together as a team. There needs to be diversity of opinion, life experiences, collaboration, constructive feedback, and not to be afraid to question each other and say, let's talk about this one more time. I'm not sure. I personally feel that as an individual, there's no one person who can do anything. I personally feel that the fiasco happened because we did not have proper policies, procedures, and systems in place. There needs to be checks and balances, and there needs to be clear, transparent communication. There's no one person in the district who can create something on a large scale that can break so many hearts. And that was really, really unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. David Gupta. You will answer first on this next question. Communication between the school and parents is crucial for a student's success. Do you have ideas on how Richland might improve communication, especially with low-income families or single parents who may have more restrictions on their time?
That is a wonderful question. I love that question. Family is very important. If we do not have our families buying in, our kids will not progress. One of the issues with education is that when we see low achievement gap, often it is because maybe a parent did not have a good educational experience themselves. So we have to open our hearts and our doors. And I'm so happy to see that all schools in Tri-Cities have taken steps in that direction. Our open houses this year had food trucks. Guess what? More people participated. So we need to create more events where we can have childcare on an open house night, on a math night, on a science night, and we could get our high school students to be those childcare providers, teach them some patience and how to give back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. David Gupta. Ms. Oldson.
Was the question primarily focused on communicating to the low-income families or all the families? I want to just make sure that I
have the question here.
Oh,
if you'd
yeah,
like
she
me
didn't
to
get
repeat
it.
it. Won't do that again. Communication between the school and parents is crucial for a student's success. Do you have ideas on how Richland might improve communication, especially with low-income families or single parents who have more restrictions on their time?
As long as I've been in industry, both on the school side and in the private sector, I think communication is something that can always be improved. The problem is how do you communicate, and how and what and why gets people to read that? You can provide a variety of information, but you can't always necessarily get them to do that. So I think the biggest thing is we need not to be afraid to over-communicate. If it's something that's critical and something that's going to be in the benefit of the students and help them achieve and be successful, then we need to breathe it and walk it and sleep it and drink it and instill it in everyone. We recently, and I just was part of this too, launched a new website. But the website is only as valuable as the people that have access to be able to do it. So I think ultimately it's a matter of creating resources and creating environments where people want to come and want to be engaged and want to learn. I think a lot of times we mistake in involvement with their lack of concern with the kids. And I think a lot of times it's because they don't necessarily know how to interact with the school or what they need to do. So I think we as a district need to just become more welcoming, more open to suggestions and ideas, and really keep that dialogue moving and back and forth between, regardless of what district, what school, or what area it is.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. It is your turn to go first again. Audience question: do you think teachers should be armed with guns in the classroom?
Wow, you guys are just making it sweat up here, aren't you? My personal opinion is I do not believe teachers should be armed with guns. I believe that a teacher is put into a classroom to instill trust, value, education. Do we have a really big issue at stake right now with the reason why we even need to worry about our teachers carrying guns in the classroom? It's so much bigger and so much deeper. We need to focus on the reasons why these things are happening. We need to focus on the social and emotional skills. You know, our teachers already have so much on their plate in trying to determine how to best reach each and every one of the children in their classroom without leaving any of them behind. The last thing I want to put on their plate is carrying a firearm. What does that look like, and how do we protect our students? I think it goes much bigger. It goes back to the community. It goes back to the education process. But first and foremost, I think it goes back to identifying the issues before they become an issue, before we need to worry about those teachers carrying a gun. What's happening in the life? I mean, we know these kids, and we can see these things from as early as kindergarten and going forward, and we need to listen, and we need to approach it from the standpoint of how can we solve the problem, not how can we put a Band-Aid on it.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Ms. Devagupta.
My answer is an emphatic no. I'm a high school science teacher, and I also teach at CBC. When I hear about school shootings, you know, I say, who knows? Maybe tonight is the last night I'm coming home. Who knows? I don't know. If you want to figure out what it is like to walk in a teacher's shoes, I'll tell you this. Research shows that a teacher who is teaching 5 periods with 150 students is typically making 6,000 decisions. 6,000. Now add a gun. Add a gun to that, and you can imagine the chaos that will be caused. And even when I go to the washroom, I lock my classroom door because I have knives and chemicals in my science classroom. And if you were to think about the military, the Navy, the Marines, all the law enforcement, the number of hours they have had training, and still you have an accidental, friendly gunfire that leads to death, the answer is clear. Teachers were never trained to handle guns, never trained to handle guns. And even if we are going to handle guns, who is paying the money? Where's the training coming from? Okay, are we sending teachers to summer school to train with guns? I don't think so. No, absolutely not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devagupta. Final question, and you will answer first. What do you think should be done about the multi-year decline in school test scores?
Multi-year decline. I am not so sure if that is accurate. So Tri-City Herald published an article about a week or 10 days ago about the recent state scores that were released. And my data tells me that Richland School District scores are actually above the state scores. 62% met ELA standard, okay? And 50.5% met the math standards. Now, you got to take into consideration that this is a snapshot. When you go on a vacation, you take dozens and dozens of pictures. The scores that they're talking about is one snapshot at a time. You have to look at the entire spectrum of scores. So we start in fall with our MAP scores. We again check in spring our MAP scores. We look at the growth. This one state score we are talking about is just like a snapshot. Let's look at everything in the country. And, you know, I would say that based on the data I have for Richland School District, which was published in Tri-City Herald and OSPI, I don't think I see a decline. I actually see a growth, 28.6% in high school math, 32.4% high school ELA growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devagupta. Ms. Oldson.
Repeat the question one more time, please.
It's an audience question. What do you think should be done about the multi-year decline in school test scores?
There absolutely is a multi-year decline in student test scores. It's interesting, I was just going over some of the OSPI data and some of our Richland School District data today with some of the teachers. It's not just our decline, it's across the board. Starting at third grade, with the ESPA tests that we've had, which is the Smarter Balance test, which is what we're basing all of our kids. Richland doesn't use MAP scores anymore. We use the SBA, which is the standard which the state goes by. But that decline, they might start at 50%, and then by the time they're in 5th grade or 8th grade, it goes down to 40%. So my question is, what are we going to do about the decline in the test scores? My thought is, what are we going to do to engage kids in wanting to learn and not lose the knowledge that we've already given them? How do we encourage that growth? How do we look at the child as a whole child, not based on what the test scores are? And currently, that's basically what teachers are based on, what their test scores are. That doesn't tell us anything about the child. It doesn't tell us about their skills or their talents or their passions. It tells them about what we want them to do and where we want them to go. If we allow them to make those decisions and look at those things and quit focusing on the tests and quit talking about the test is going to take care of itself. Because we've taught these children how to be critical thinkers and how to go outside the realm of what it is that's expected in traditional school environment. If we want different results, we have to start doing things differently. And based on that, that's the only thing that's going to make a change in our students.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both of these candidates running for Richland School Board Director 5, Jill Oldson, Rama Devagupta.